Today, we're going to have a conversation with a special agent from the FBI where they're trying to expand on their diversity, which means they're looking for African American men and Latino men. Join us today and let's take a look. Welcome once again to Winbrook Pride. Today we have a special guest in the studio with us this morning, FBI Supervisory Special Agent Joanne Payne Prayer. She's a lifelong friend of mine. We went to school up at Buffalo State College, and she graces us with her presence today to talk to us about specifically targeting African American men and Latino men, recruiting them for the FBI. And that's information I didn't know myself. Once I got that information, I wanted to share that with everyone. So we want to welcome Joanne to the studio this morning.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you here. I can't remember what your major was in college, but I know we got an A in partying, 101. We had a good time.
Must we let the public know that?
So just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into your career.
Okay. So in undergrad at Buffalo State, I started out, actually when we met, I hadn't yet designated an major, I don't think, but it wound up being psychology. Oh, okay. So when I graduated from University of Buffalo, I had a degree in psychology and philosophy.
Wow.
Undergraduate
that
degree.
I remember. Okay.
In psychology and philosophy. And then I went on, when I came back home, to get my master's from LIU in clinical psychology.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So I thought that I was going to be a psychologist, right? Which was a cop-out for me because initially I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And as you know, I started taking courses in biology and chemistry and all that my freshman year. And I thought, yeah, medical school is not for me. Right. So I quickly changed from psychiatry to psychology. And after I had my master's, I started working in the field of human resources for the city of New York. Okay. And I was working first at a foster home for kids to place children in foster care. And then I worked for the city of New York under the Child Welfare Administration.
Wow. Okay.
So I was the caseworker who was investigating cases of abuse towards children, right?
So social work, okay. Doing
exactly social work, and I was doing, it was physical abuse to kids. And from there I went to Division of AIDS Services, and I worked with AIDS patients. And from then I started a pilot project where HRA worked inside of Health and Hospital Corporation. So I was working at Bellevue Hospital as a psychiatric addiction counselor, right? Working in the social work department, and they snatched me up, Health and Hospital Corporation. So I went from one city agency to the next.
Okay. So what inspired you to join the FBI? From that, because I actually remember you telling me that you were joining.
You do?
Way back
you
when.
Do.
I think it was 95, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So what happened was I was working at Bellevue, and in this position, I had a very cush job. I loved what I was doing, and a childhood friend of mine who had been an agent for about 5 years at the time told me the freeze was lifted. We had spoken all the time, just like you and I, right? So during one of our conversations, he told me the hiring freeze is lifted, you should apply. I remember specifically watching about the Oklahoma City bombing on TV. And so that was our first real homegrown terrorist event from an individual who did not match our historical kind of idea of what a terrorist is, right? Because he was a white male. And I remember watching it and telling my friend, Alan, you know, we were talking about it, conversing about what a travesty it was, and he said, the freeze is lifted, you should apply. And I immediately dismissed him. I just blew him off. I was like, whatever. And and funny enough, later on, either that day, definitely in that same week, one of my colleagues in the social work department told me that he had applied to the FBI, FDNY, NYPD, a host of law enforcement agencies, state, local, federal. And he looked like me as well. Alan looked like me, and he looked like me. And I just had an epiphany moment, and I thought, why did I blow Alan off? Why wouldn't I apply, right? And I looked at my colleague, and I thought, if he can apply.
Because the FBI sounds so mysterious and hard to get into and things of that nature. And I guess, I don't know if you had that in your mindset, or I know I had that when you told me to apply. Right. You had it, but I did. I had that in my, not only was it completely off script, because my background, you know, I was going to counsel, right? Had never been in the military, never been in law enforcement. I don't come from a family of law enforcement. So it was, and I've always been, honestly, vain about, you know, wearing uniforms and that kind of thing. I never even considered the FBI, not knowing full well that FBI agents don't wear uniforms. I just never considered law enforcement in that respect. And so when I thought, okay, why can't I apply? Why shouldn't I apply? I really just applied on a whim, never imagining. Right? I thought, let me just see how far I get. You know, this will be fun. Let me see how far I get. And so 23 years later. Nice.
By God's grace. I had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into. The places that I would travel to, the things that I would see, the people that I would meet, the investigations that I'd be a part of. I just applied on a whim.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, so I definitely remember you telling me that you were going to Quantico, correct?
Yeah, Virginia.
And let's say I'm a new recruit, and let's say I got in. And how is Quantico actually? Like, how is it like? I think of Quantico as pledging.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Right. It's very much like pledging. You and I both pledged. So it's very much like pledging. I was completely a fish out of water when I went down to Quantico because, again, I never aspired to be a special agent, right? So I never researched. You know, I never knew what that entailed. I just knew that you carried a gun and a badge. And if he could do it, I could do it. You know, so I had no idea what I was going down to. And they don't let you go to Quantico with your family. And so I remember I took a train with lots of bags. You know me. Lots of bags. And I got there and immediately I realized that I would have no control over, you know, what I was able to do and not do. And for me, being a control freak, it was a complete culture shock.
Because I mean, when I think of Quantico or just training to that degree, very physical, very rigorous. And I just don't, obviously, I don't see you that way, right? Obviously, right? So I'm just trying to picture you, and I'm trying to give our audience, you know, a piece of this because no one usually always sees themselves that way. So for you to, you know, you did some training, So what might have been the biggest challenge for you?
Exactly. So that's a really good question, because just like you didn't see me in this position, neither did I.
Wow.
Which was the reason why I blew Alan off when he said, the freeze is lifted, you should apply.
Right.
And even through Quantico, when I got there, I had this idea of myself, right? And there's a term that, we're our own worst enemies. So I didn't realize that I was actually putting limitations on myself and what I could do and what I couldn't do. It was an eye-opening experience, because in Quantico there are essentially 3 fields of study. Now it's changed drastically since I went through, right? 23 years, almost a quarter of a century.
Right, stop. Go ahead. Okay.
Right? I joined when I was 10.
Right.
But almost a quarter of a century, right? So it really has changed. But essentially there are 3 fields of study, right? So you have academia, which, if you apply yourself, it's just like going to college. It's going to graduate school. You apply yourself, you get through.
Right.
Then there is firearms. And that's a little more different because you can apply yourself and you still might not pass. Men have been known to overthink shooting, or kind of strong arm the weapon. I believe there is research to suggest that women are better shooters than men. Better shots. Better shots, I would say.
We're going to let that go. Okay, right.
Just saying.
All right.
It is the month of women, isn't it? But that you have to, and a lot of men, as you can understand, come from a law enforcement background, so they might have learned how to shoot differently than how the Bureau shoots, and so then they have to unlearn. So, it depends on what your background is, whether you can shoot or not.
Right, okay.
But that essentially is, picking up a weapon, using your sights to aim and shooting. And so luckily I didn't have a problem with that. Where I had to focus was the physical training. Right? Because I was never an athlete in school. If you remember, I danced. Right. And I danced even before we met, all through high school. Now, dancing is athletic. I'm not suggesting that it's not. Right. But I never ran. I didn't know what a push-up was. I never did pull-ups. And so you have these physical, criteria that you have to pass. It's a physical test.
How did you get through it? How did you get through it?
So when I realized that I had to pass the physical training, I found that out obviously before I went to Quantico. I started eating well. Right? So I don't know if you remember, but I was a junk food junkie, right? So I loved my chips and I loved juice, not so much soda, but I never drank water. And funny enough, before I went down to Quantico, I just started eating well. So that is to say, cutting out all the junk and drinking only water. And even I stopped eating bread, which for me was very big, right? The weight came off of me so quickly I thought I was sick. My mom's a nurse, a retired nurse now, and I was like, Mommy, I'm dying, because the weight dropped off of me.
Wow, so you changed your diet before you left.
I changed my diet before I left, and I was running, routinely and doing, attempting to do what would be required of me there. But that worked to my detriment, because I lost weight so quickly that I ended up at Quantico with no muscle mass whatsoever. None. And it's funny you should ask about this, because when I got to Quantico, so you get tested physically as soon as you get there with your class, right? And you have to get at least 1 point in every section, right? But you have to pass with maybe a 12. I don't know if it was a 15 years ago, but it's a 12 now, I think. But you have to get at least 1 point in each. My first test, and I don't mind saying this, I wasn't even on board. I wasn't even on board.
So let me get this correct. So you can possibly fail it and then they'll retest you?
or not I wouldn't be here.
Okay.
I didn't only fail, I had a -9.
Wow.
I could not do one push-up when I got to Quantico. And then we had what was called Power PT. So you would have your physical training, you know, like there was a time slot for your physical training. And then people who needed help or needed a little more would have this Power PT after classes or whenever. Let me tell you, I was so driven. There you could be recycled, meaning if you didn't keep up with your classmates, you could be pushed back to another class. Almost,
wow, okay.
I hate to say the connotation, but like left back, you know? Like you're left back and you have to graduate with another class if you're lucky. And so I had determined I was not getting recycled.
Okay.
I came in with a class and I was going to graduate with my class. So lucky for me, I had the academia down. I had the firearms down. I was able to focus on the physical training. There were mornings that I woke up, first thing in the morning, I dropped to the floor and I'd do my PT. I'd go out running. I'd go to class. At lunchtime, I'd run or I'd do my push-up.
So you pushed yourself through it. You pushed yourself through what you struggled through. In terms of the physical piece.
In terms of the physical piece. So to give you an idea, the first test I failed miserably, horribly, -9. From the first to the second exam, you get to, back then you could take it 3 times and you had to pass it once. So they give it to you when you first arrive, in the middle of your time there, and at the end. As long as you pass the test, this was back then. As long as you pass the test once, you pass.
And how long is Quantico overall?
Quantico then was maybe, I don't know, 4 months.
4 months.
Maybe about 4 months.
So
right now it's grown. It's gotten
big. Okay, so let me ask
longer.
You, in terms of specializing in the recruitment for African American men and Latino men, just tell me why there's that strong push for African men or Latino men to get into the FBI.
I sure will, but first can we say that I passed the we can't have people thinking.
But you here, right?
we can't have people thinking that I got a -9.
Right, so what was your final result?
So what happened was the second test, which is given in the middle, I went from a -9 to an 18, right? You only needed, it was either 12 or 15.
Oh, so you jumped up.
So I went from 27 points, I jumped up, right?
Wow, okay.
To an 18.
Okay.
And then my final test was a 37.
Nice.
And max out, I want to say it was 50 to max out. So yeah, so for me, I knew what I needed to focus on, and I focused on that, and I graduated. So back to your question.
She passed, everybody. She's here. She made it. That's what she want to say. She made it. Okay.
So back to your question about why the focus.
Right.
Okay, so we're having a deficit in special agents right now today, and particularly overall, but particularly our diversified cadre of special agents, right? So to give you an idea, in 1995, of maybe 11,000 strong, maybe 11,000, 12,000. I don't even think we were at 12,000 special agents strong nationwide in 1995. I was maybe number 74 or 75 black female special agent, right, in 1995. And so in 2018, it has not gotten much better.
Wow.
Right? And so let's just put things in context.
But let me just ask you on that point, why do you think that is?
Well, and so that's what I was going to say. So we have always been an exclusive law enforcement agency, right? I mean, by virtue of what we do, right? I consider us, I love my FBI, and I consider us the premier law enforcement agency in the world, right? So we have been exclusive. We've had to be exclusive. We continue to be exclusive. Our exclusivity may or may not have been deliberate, right?
But when you say
with
exclusive, what does that actually
with
mean?
respect to hiring.
Okay, so when you say exclusive, I don't know what you mean by that.
So we have particular parameters
Okay.
that you need to be within in order to be hired,
Okay,
right? As a
gotcha.
special
Okay,
agent,
gotcha.
right?
Okay.
So a lot of law enforcement agencies don't require a 4-year degree. We do.
Okay,
Right?
right.
So we require, for the special agent role, we require 3 years college, 3 years, I'm sorry, of professional experience,
Right.
3 years work experience, a 4-year degree. We require you not to have been a felon.
Right.
If
Right.
you're
Okay.
male, we require you to have registered with Selective Service. You have to pass a robust and aggressive background
So those
investigation.
parameters
Right.
still exist today.
They still exist today.
So what would you say to a young man, and I'm just going to go, to African American or Latino, that's in high school or out of high school, trying to figure out which way they want to go, and they're considering the FBI? What would you advise them to do?
Right. So, okay, people have this misconception that, oh, if I want to be in law enforcement or federal agent, and I want to be a special agent with the FBI, I'm going to major in criminal justice.
Right, right.
So criminal justice major is a noble field. It's, an excellent field of study. However, a few people have kind of decided it's criminal justice that's going to get me into the bureau, a
Right.
4-year degree in criminal
Right.
justice. And so because of that, there are so many with CJ degrees
Right.
that there is nothing to set you apart.
Okay.
So what we always say when we're speaking to crowds who have an interest in joining the Bureau is choose your passion.
Okay.
What is that thing that you're most passionate about?
Okay.
Choose that. Major in that. Do well in that. Get a graduate degree in that.
Okay.
Because that's what's going to set you apart from the CJ major.
Okay.
Right? So right now we're in an age of technology. So
Right.
we're looking for STEM.
Okay, got
So science,
STEM,
technology,
Okay.
engineering, mathematics. That's what
Right.
we're looking for
Okay.
across the board.
Right.
STEM experience, whether you're applying for the special agent role or you're applying for another professional
So
support
two quick
role.
things. I just want you to say STEM one more time.
STEM,
'Cause-
science, technology,
Okay.
engineering, mathematics.
Okay, awesome. Because I think our young people need to hear that.
Yes.
Especially those who are still in high school.
Right.
And still on that learning curve, and
Yes.
we're pouring into them. The other thing
For
I want you
sure.
to just elaborate on really quickly is that the two distinctions within the FBI.
Yes.
So there's a field FBI agent, and then there's
So the FBI, right? So we've always been a law enforcement agency, right? A law enforcement. What the public doesn't know or might not know is that we have also been an intelligence gathering agency from the time of our inception
Right.
in 1908, right?
Right.
So law enforcement, intelligence gathering. And more often than not, when people think about the FBI, they think special agent,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's glamorous, you see it on TV, you see movies about it, and so people always equate the FBI with special agents. However, there are so many other roles within the FBI under our professional support arm that people are unaware of, which they can avail
and which two?
themselves to.
What are the labels for the two distinctions in the FBI? Because I went on the
Professional support
Okay.
and the special agent. So,
Okay.
and with our special agent, right along with our special agents, studying along with our special agents, following that career track are our intelligence analysts,
Okay.
right? So you have your special support arm, which does just that. They support the investigations
Okay.
of the FBI. Without them, we wouldn't be able to conduct a successful investigation. But basically, it's those in the FBI who carry a gun and a badge and those who don't.
Right.
So the
Okay.
intelligence analysts, the forensic scientists, the photographers, the linguists,
Right.
the auto mechanics.
Right.
We have auto mechanics. You know,
Nice.
people don't think, oh, I drove here. Special agents have to be able to report 24/7. How do we do that? We drive.
Nice.
Who maintains that fleet? We have auto mechanics.
Nice. That's
You see,
awesome.
we
Right.
have evidence technicians.
Okay.
We have facility managers, people who take care of what's going on in our buildings
Right.
and make sure that we have a place where we can house our files.
And
And so
everything's up to par.
without them, the FBI wouldn't run as well and as smoothly as it does. You
Right.
know, we have analysts, we have supervisory intelligence analysts, we have MAPAs, which are, manage whole programs
Right.
with respect to our intelligence and our research. So people think, oh, it's the FBI. I want to be a special agent, or I don't want to be a special agent.
But there's a plethora of other careers.
Plethora.
And
I love
fields
that
and-
word.
Right. So everything.
Plethora.
Well, I try. So there's there's a lot. So there's a lot of stuff, other fields of study and everything that's out there in terms of the careers
Right.
and things of that nature. So very quickly, where can, if I'm a young man, again, our audience, we're trying to recruit as many of
Right.
us as
Right.
possible.
Right.
Where should they go for information
Right.
in terms of their interests?
So everything is online now,
Right,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Back in the day, I applied with
Right.
a pen and paper, right?
Right.
But everything's online. It's
Okay.
www.fbijobs.gov.
Okay.
Everything is online. www.fbijobs.gov, and they can go on. They could see that plethora
Right,
of careers,
uh-huh.
right? And the thing is that no matter what it is you're applying to, which role you apply to in the Bureau, it's a career like no other. So you know that I never aspired to be a special agent.
Right.
But I know that I was meant to be here, right? And I was purposed to be here. But what I want to say is, because I decided to take my own limitations off of myself and apply, I have met presidents, right? I have met princes, and I was born in
Yeah,
England.
right.
And so for me to meet Prince Harry, that was huge for me.
Right.
My first
Awesome.
trip to Africa was on the Bureau. As a woman of color, that's huge to me.
Wow.
I've been there at least 5 times since. I've been to Iraq.
You are always traveling. I can barely catch you. I know.
Right, you know that.
Right.
And so I want to say that if you join the Bureau in any capacity, special agent, professional support, it is truly a career like no other.
Wow.
It not only, the mission is to protect these United States
Correct.
and its citizens,
Right.
amongst other things. That's our first mission. And so having a sense of purpose in that regard, with respect to your profession, is immeasurable.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. But then being able to enhance yourself personally by the travel, the things you see, who you speak to, the circles that you're in. There's no way I could have dreamt
You can't even describe it. It's awesome. Wow.
having this type of a
Wow.
career.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Miss Joanne, excuse me, let me get this correct. FBI Supervisory Special Agent Joanne Payne Prayer. She's passionate about her career. She loves it, obviously. The travel, the meeting of the people, the personal growth, and the career path and her trajectory has been phenomenal. We didn't get a chance to get into that. Maybe we'll have her come back on the show and talk about her personal career. But we want to thank her for coming on and sharing with us about the dynamics regarding recruitment for the FBI, the requirements for the FBI, and she's doing a tremendous job, and we want to thank her for coming on. There you have it, Winbrook Pride. Always remember, be true, be you, and always do what you got to do. Winbrook Pride.